Well, hello everyone. So amazing to be on air with you all tonight. I am Dr. Donnetta Watson. I am the founder of the Black MasterMind Group. And I'm so excited to have this opportunity to come before you today and talk with you about what we do in the Black Mastermind organization. This is our very first broadcast of the Mastermind Minutes. And I want to give you a little bit of history about who we are and what we do. So, as we move forward throughout the next period of time, however long we're going to be with you, I want to be able to share with you more about how we impact Black entrepreneurs. And you'll get to see people that we work with and individuals that are part of our organization and people we collaborate with to provide the level of education, training, coaching, mentoring, and development that we do for the Black entrepreneurial community. So, a little bit about me. Well, I am an adjunct professor, have been for a very long time, and I love educating, training, coaching, mentoring, and developing Black entrepreneurs. I have a doctorate degree in entrepreneurial studies, a master's degree in quality systems management, bachelor's degree in HR, and I have been on this journey most of my life as an entrepreneur. Now, I've been what people call a dualpreneur. The majority of my entrepreneurial journey started when I was working full time for someone else. And I never let my employers know that I had a business. And I'm going to make sure I reiterate that to you. Many of my employers did not know I even had a business because as I was working the business, I never let them know what I was doing with my evenings and weekends. I always had another strategy going on. All my life, I've been that person that's what people call a high octane person. And because I'm a high octane person, I can do a lot and I can work probably circles around most people. And so that's my gift. And because of it, I'm been an entrepreneur, work a full-time job, come home and work my business. And as I was working the business, I knew that I was an entrepreneur. I knew that I was called to be an entrepreneur. And so I needed to prepare myself for the journey of becoming an entrepreneur. So I put money aside each and every week, each and every pay period, solely for the purpose of starting the business. I saved an incredible amount of money over the years that I worked. And when I was finished my education, I ended up working for the federal government as a management statistician, supervisory statistician, then promoted to management. And my responsibility was to oversee data collection efforts in 6 states across the nation. And although the job itself was very challenging, I loved what I did. I didn't love the environment that I was in, but I loved what I did. And I knew that it was part of my future plan to have the money necessary to step into my business. I didn't know that there was going to be a day that I would walk into that business sooner than I had expected. But I often said I wasn't going to, although the environment I was in was very challenging, I said I wasn't quitting. They were going to pay me to leave. And so I confess that every day that I'm not quitting, no matter how tough it gets, no matter how difficult it is, working in a predominantly white male field as a statistician. That's a predominantly white male field. And it was very challenging being a Black female working in that environment. But I knew that I was there for a purpose and for a reason. And that was to acquire the money I needed before I started the business. And so I want to dispel a myth that the majority of people are doing today. They're jumping into business ill prepared. So I knew it was important for me to be properly prepared financially, educationally, and in my personal life. I had 3 children. Wanted to make sure that my children were able to handle me being gone, working a full time business. And so I built the business, I built my life to be able to have the business when it would suit my family the most. And God just worked everything out the way I had anticipated. So I did what was necessary. I planned. I had a plan. I had a personal plan, I had a business plan, and I had a financial plan. And all three of those were keeping me going toward the direction I wanted to see my life go. And then one day, my boss called the whole office in to advise us that they were closing 6 federal government offices across the nation, one of which was the office that I worked in. And when that announcement was made, the room began to just fill with tears and sobbing. And I sat there with the biggest smile on my face, sitting right in front of my boss. I had the biggest smile on my face because I heard God tell me, now it's time. Now you can start the business. I had prepared myself. I went back to school. I had already a master's degree. I finished business school and got a business degree. I was on the journey for 14 years. Hear me, people. 14 years. I saved money, had an enormous amount of money sitting in a fund that I had saved because I knew there was going to be a day that I would get to do this. And so I put every extra bonus, award, every raise, everything I could get my hands on went into savings because there was going to be a day that I would run a business. And I prepared myself for the opportunity. I'm a firm believer that opportunities come to those people who have prepared themselves for it. And that's when the boss made the announcement that the office was closing. I was already ready. I was looking for that day to come when we would close. I would exit that job some way, somehow, or the business would be closed. But basically, what I kept confessing was, I'm not quitting. I don't care how difficult it gets here. I'm going to have them pay me to leave. Well, I got my severance package, which was 1 year of my government salary. I also received an additional severance pay plus my sick leave, my vacation in a pay. That was more money than I thought I needed to start the business. And within 30 days of the office closing, I was a full-time entrepreneur. Now, let me tell you what happened during those 14 years. I was telling people, I'm going to start my business one day. I'm going to have a venue. I'm going to open up wedding and event venues. And actually, I had 3 in my city, but I confessed it. I kept saying, one day I'm going to do it. I kept saying it to the point where I think people really got tired of hearing me say it. I'm going to let that marinate for just a moment. People got tired of hearing me say that I was going to start a business one day, but I kept confessing it. I kept saying, I am going to start my business. I'm going to do this. I had been a wedding and event planner, an interior decorator, and a florist for 15 years. And I wanted to be in my own space so I can do as many creative things in my own building. Plus, I owned a wedding and event planning company, an interior decorating company. All of those things was preparing me to be in my own building. And everything I did was to align my life that where I would be able to walk right in whatever opportunity presented itself. Well, an opportunity did come when that location closed. When the federal government decided to close 6 offices, that was the best thing that could have happened to my life. And that's why I was there smiling while everyone else was crying, because I was ready for the opportunity. I'm hoping that you capture some of the things that I'm saying, because oftentimes we think that everything is working for everybody else but us. And the difference between what's happening in their lives and what's happening in yours is they're on the pathway of preparation. They've been in the background, in the closet, in the back room, working and preparing. They've been sacrificing and making the necessary commitments and confessions and affirmations necessary for the door to open, for themselves to walk into. And literally, you do walk into, you don't fall in, stumble in to an opportunity. You literally walk into an opportunity. And that's what happened? Because opportunities are always around us each and every day. Oftentimes we don't see them because they're often disguised as a problem. They often are on the backside of a calamity or a problem or a disaster. But we're so caught up in the problem, the calamity, and the disaster that we don't see the opportunity. But when you are prepared for the opportunity and it begins to manifest, you'll see it, you'll know it's for you, and you'll move right into it. So, the clue that I'm dropping that I hope you've picked up, yes, Dr. Watson drops clues. Pay attention, class. I'm an educator. Pay attention. So, the clue is you must be prepared for the opportunity first to be able to identify that it is an opportunity, also to know that it is a right now opportunity and it meets your requirements. Those things that you've been asking for, that opportunity fits right in alignment with what you've been asking for. So, back to my journey. So I was ready to go, started the business, began to work in the business, and within 30 days, opened a second location. Within less than a year and a half, we had a third location open. Now, I teach entrepreneurs today that it's not wisdom to grow too fast. Why? I've had two businesses, and I'm going to tell you, it took me, first time was shame on the other person, second time was shame on me. So I'm going to own up to my mistakes in business because we all make them. And hopefully when we make them, they turn into life lessons that are stepping stones for us. So my biggest mistake was, again, we grew too fast. And within a year and a half, we had 3 locations. What happened as a result of the 3 locations? It tripled my operating cost. So we went from $10,000 to $11,000 a month during our non-peak period of time to $25,000, not a year. Somebody said a year? No, not a year. $25,000 a month was our operating cost for 3 buildings, staff, equipment, supplies, materials, rent, utilities, taxes, OMG, taxes. All of that hit at the same time. So our cost of operating totally ate up all of our revenues. And we found ourselves doing something that most Black entrepreneurs do: bootstrap our revenues. That means every dime that comes in goes toward operating costs. So there's very minimal profit set aside in the business. And at some point in time, being a student of business and understanding the financial side of business and being a statistician who lived a life evaluating numbers and looking at numbers and looking at processes and systems and redesigning and re-engineering processes and systems, I knew that my business was not okay. And nobody had to tell me. I knew it. And oftentimes I would do, we do those spiritual things. We pray and we pray and we pray and we think that because we're praying, it's going to wipe away the problem. It doesn't. I'm just going to let that marinate for just a moment. We hear the people give them testimonies about, I went into the room and I prayed, and when I got up, everything was, no, didn't happen that way. I prayed and I prayed, and I'm a woman of prayer. I prayed and I prayed, and guess what? It was still the same way. Why? There were lessons that I needed to learn. And so I shut all of my buildings down because it wasn't making any money. Now, it was making coins, but it wasn't making me a profit. And so because we were not able to maintain a profit in the business, I closed all of them. Shocked a lot of people because in my city, I was the wedding planner. I was the interior decorator. I was the event designer. I was all of that and some. And in essence, I lost my identity in the midst of all of that. I became what everybody needed me to be as an entrepreneur. And I lost my identity because I was the person that everybody called when they wanted something fabulous done for their events. But I didn't have my own personal journey clear. So when I shut the buildings down, it was traumatic for me, extremely traumatic, because for 30 years, I've been the wedding planner. I've been the event designer. I've been the florist and the decorator. I've been the person that was doing all of these amazing things in my city, but it wasn't making any money. And if it isn't making any money, it isn't making any sense for you to be doing it. And so I told myself that at a certain point in time, if this business does not turn around, I'm closing all of the doors. And I did, because I'm addicted to the title of being an entrepreneur. I wanted to be in a business model that was financially lucrative, financially profitable. Not enough to walk around saying I own a business when in essence the business owns you. The business has pimped you out on the corner and is demanding that you bring it some money home every night. You got to get up early in the morning because it's saying, bring me my money. And so you don't own the business. In essence, it's owning you. It tells you when you get to spend time doing what. It tells you if you've done enough for it. Just want that to marinate for just a moment. So I didn't like being caught up in that trap of having a business and saying I was an entrepreneur and had no fruit, had no results, had no profit, had lots of bills to pay, but no profit. And that's not a business, that's a glorified job. Oftentimes, I wasn't able to pay myself a salary, glorified job. Oftentimes, any extra money I personally received went into the business, glorified job. So we don't want to talk about what you own. I own a bit. No. Is it making you any money? Is it paying your salary? Is it providing you a lifestyle of a CEO that owns a business? If not, you have a glorified job. And if it's not making you any money, let's take a look at it and see if it's making any sense to even own it. If it doesn't, it's time to kill it and bury it and not resurrect it again. That's a hard thing for many of us who are addicted to what it feels like to say you own a business and not what it feels like when the business is putting dollars in your bank account. And you can go to that bank account and you can buy what you want to buy. You can travel where you want to travel. You can live the way you want to live. That's what a business should be doing for you, the entrepreneur. It should be providing you with the lifestyle of a CEO. Now, we're going to teach you what that is and what it should be. But in essence, it is not what we see happening in the Black community. And as a result of my own journey and seeing what was happening in a lot of other Black entrepreneurs' businesses, see, everybody's in the same boat. They may be on Facebook living that kind of life, that everybody's talking about, living that life. I don't know what that is, because if you really was living it, you wouldn't be on Facebook. You definitely wouldn't be on Facebook trying to show folks this life that you live in if you was really living that type of life. Very few of us know what it looks like to live that type of life. We perpetrating it on Facebook. But in the meantime, you're calling yourself an entrepreneur, but the business isn't paying you a salary. Definitely not a fair living wage for what your level of experience is in the business. And so if a CEO of a company earns over $100,000 a year and you're not even bringing 20 home, you are not an entrepreneur. You got a hobby, a hookup, or a hustle. And we want to help you turn it into a real business. So I want to go back to my story for just a moment. And so what I would do was something that I started doing when things were going very well in my business. There were people who would call and come by my office and want to know, how are you doing this? And, my business was in a community in our downtown area where there were very few Black entrepreneurs in that area. It's one of the entertainment districts in our city. And we had a very strong white clientele, predominantly white clientele. And so that physical location was very successful. And then the owner sold the building. And so my demise began when the owner sold the first location we were at, and we had to find a secondary location. Found a location, and like most entrepreneurs, had some contractor issues, and it got involved with the wrong contractor who swindled and connived and manipulated a lot of money out of me, to where when we started the second building, I was not in the same financial position I was when I started the first building, and it never recovered. You see, I left a very thriving community, and I went into a community that was considered on the wrong side of the Macon County line, on the east side of town. And our client base was predominantly white, and they refused to come on that east side of town. And consequently, our business revenues just plummeted. And our client base immediately changed. We went from being 98% white and 1% Black, 1% Hispanic, to 100% Black. And many of you who are serious entrepreneurs know we are a very difficult group of people to serve. And we predominantly only shop by price. And I don't want to stereotype or generalize, but we don't do value. We shop strictly by price. And we'll go around the corner and 10 blocks down, 10 miles if sometimes, to save $2. And so that's unfortunately the community my business was in. And we provided full service and value on top of value for our price point, and our community couldn't see the value of all the amenities and services we offered. And consequently, I was refusing to reduce our pricing anymore. It just was the wrong time, the wrong location, and the wrong customer base for the level of business services that we offered. And as a business instructor, mentor, and coach, these are things that I knew because I teach them to other people, but I had to live them out myself. And I made the decision to close the business versus reduce our price point to where we would not be able to meet our obligations. Those are decisions that have to be made by looking at the numbers, what the business has been producing, and being able to determine if the business is truly profitable and if the business is able to meet all of its expenses, including the owner's salary, staff, marketing, operation costs, and profit. So we're going to talk about that in just a little bit more. So on my journey, I would go in and interview entrepreneurs and find out that, wait a minute, they're not doing well. And so during that period of time, I was that girl with that checkbook that wrote all the checks with a lot of zeros. And I would help entrepreneurs, and I would plant money into their business because I believed in what they were doing. And it was so important to see that we had Black entrepreneurs in physical brick and mortar locations in the community. And I wanted their businesses to survive. And unfortunately, their businesses was typically all having the same situation. And I kept asking, why are Black businesses struggling so? What is going on that every entrepreneur I have met is struggling? Number one, they've never paid themselves from their business. Never. The business isn't producing enough revenue to even pay the rent, let alone pay themselves a salary. What are we doing What in the world are we calling business? And so I kept asking the question because I kept meeting the people that, wait a minute, you're on Facebook and you making all these glorious claims about what all you're doing, but you're not making enough money to even keep your rent up to date. And so I walked through that very same scenario, but it wasn't important for me to be seen as an entrepreneur. I wanted to be an entrepreneur. And if these numbers didn't make any sense to me, it didn't make any sense for me to be doing business. These numbers were jacked up and we couldn't meet our monthly obligations. We don't need to be doing this type of business. And it takes maturity to look at what you have and make that assessment and come out of the situation knowing that this was not a profitable business model. And let me start all over again. And so, consequently, as a result of me closing my business, I found myself advising people on whether or not they needed to remain in what they had or whether they needed to walk away. And how I began to advise and instruct them was basically, what's the numbers telling you? Because numbers don't lie, they tell the truth. And oftentimes we don't want to believe the story that the numbers are telling us, but it's right there in black and white and often in black and red. So once we talk through what you're looking at, the decision would have to be based on what's the numbers telling you. Where's the business been financially? Where is it at today? And what potential does it have in the future to be profitable? And if it cannot, if there isn't the ability to see profit coming from the business, you have a glorified hobby, hookup, or a hustle, or a glorified job. Because a business is supposed to exchange goods and services for money and make a profit. So I'm going to say that again because somehow we've missed the second part of that explanation of what a business is. A business is an exchange of goods and services for money and a profit. It produces a profit. So oftentimes in our community, we have one and not the other. So if you're not making any money from the exchange, it's a hobby. I'm going to just let that marinate for just a moment. You're calling it a business, but you're not producing any revenue. And so you're doing favors for people and you're calling that business, and the IRS says it's a hobby. Or you're shaking folks down. You got a scheme or a scam all the time. You're hooked up and involved in all these scam type of business, so-called business endeavors, and those are just hustles. Something you're doing to make some money today, and tomorrow you're into something else. Anything to turn over a buck, that's a hustle. And a hookup is, hey, you take care of me, I take care of you. Let me do something for you, you do something for me. That's not business, that's a hookup. Or you got a glorified job. You got to show up there every day. You got to punch that clock and you got to work 10, 12 hours a day. And you can't take a day off, and you can't, if something happened in your family and you needed to be there, you can't, because who's going to run the ship? Who's going to man it? Who's going to open the door, turn the lights on, greet the customer, ring up the register, pack the items, clean the building, restock the shelves? Who's going to do all that if you're not there? So in essence, you have a glorified job. And this is why we exist today. All of this that I said was to bring you to a point where we know what we're talking about when it comes to business. We've been on both sides of the equation. And now what we're wanting to do is to provide our community with everything possible to get us out of hobbies, hookups, and hustles into what's called a valid, viable, sustainable business model. It is possible. And I'm going to share with you how and why. You see, in the Black Mastermind Group, we use Black entrepreneurs, and I don't want to use the word use. Our organization trains and recruits and trains Black entrepreneurs to train and coach and mentor other Black entrepreneurs. We know that our story is different than any other ethnic group. And so the story we have to tell about our journey is filled with disparities, is filled with racism, is filled with economic challenges. It's filled with the issues that seem to plague Black business. And that is how we, as Black people, don't patronize or support Black business. We as people do patronize and support. We're very difficult to please and satisfy and serve. And if we have any problems in the community and our business, it's solely dealing with our own people. And everybody has this myth in their head that because you're a Black entrepreneur, you don't know what you're doing. And because you're a Black entrepreneur, what you offer is of sub quality or substandard. Because you're a Black entrepreneur, you're not providing good quality service because you're Black. Now, we get that from all the other ethnic groups, but we also get it more predominantly from our own people. And so we're judged so harshly as entrepreneurs. We have to have it twice as good as everyone else, or our community thinks that everybody else is their water and their ice is colder than our water and our ice. And so because of that, they choose to spend their dollars everywhere else but with Black businesses. And I've been through that. And so when we have those challenges, we need someone who understands our narrative, our struggle, and our issues, helping us, instead of people who have absolutely no clue what it is to be denied access, what it means to be looked at, business to be looked at and presumed as less, and to have a business overlooked or mistreated because it belongs to a Black entrepreneur. So we recruit Black entrepreneurs who have a passion and a love for Black business and is willing to learn our system so that we can create impact in every which way we can and restart or relaunch businesses that have closed as a result of COVID, and provide educational concepts and business understanding so we can create sustainable business models. That's what we do in the Black Mastermind Group. So we are a 501c3 organization, and actually our legal name is the Black Mastermind Group Charitable Foundation. And we're a charitable foundation because we raise money, we acquire dollars, and we turn around and put those dollars into a Black entrepreneur being able to come into a classroom and get the level of training and the level of experience in understanding the financial side of business. And we call that entrepreneur financial literacy. Now, don't you take I trademark my topic now. Entrepreneurial financial literacy. And that's teaching our community how to run a business by the numbers, how to make decisions every day based on the financial condition or financial position of your business, how to create a revenue generating business, how to manage the goals, how to set sales goals and requirements in your business so that you can maintain a healthy amount of revenue each and every month in your business. So all of our leaders go through our training program so that they can apply the concepts that we teach to their own business. We say, put a mask on your business first before you try to help somebody else. Because if you're suffocating, you can't help anyone else. So we've got a question here. Do you think we as business owners are prepared for what some are saying will be a new hybrid way of working, part remote, part in an office? Well, as a result of COVID, it's changed. It's created a new paradigm. And that's all it's done is created a new paradigm. Unfortunately, prior to COVID, the Black entrepreneurial community was relying predominantly on face-to-face business interactions. And we still do because of the lack of technology and access to technology and understanding of technological systems that are available to do business. And so we have been doing business face-to-face, which required us to travel to a physical location and purchase what you need. But as a result of COVID, the business world has shifted predominantly to a online and virtual environment. But unfortunately, I still see the Black community predominantly operating face to face. So I don't think we learned how to do business wiser as a result of COVID. And so consequently, we had more businesses closed than any other ethnic group. We saw out of the 2.4, sometimes it's between 2.4 to 2.7 million Black businesses, we saw 1 million, over 1,100,000 businesses close permanently. Why? Because they were built on face-to-face interactions, and secondary, they didn't know how to manage their revenues without bootstrapping. And when face-to-face customers dwindled, they didn't have a resource or access to resources to keep their business doors open. I pray that our community learned a valuable lesson from COVID and have taken the lesson that every business was taught, and that's how to pivot, how to continue to serve customers in a different way, how to create business opportunities that are not reliant upon face-to-face interactions. But based on the number of businesses that I saw still doing face-to-face business, I don't think we really got an opportunity to take advantage of what I see happening. And so here's another question. What can we do to encourage our youth to go into non-traditional African-American businesses, not just be in the restaurant, beauty, and funeral services? You know, that's my passion. That's my real passion. See, I do business and teach business because I love teaching. But my passion is to make sure that the next generation of entrepreneurs do not make the same mistakes that we've made. If we handed them what we've created, we would give them a mess. Because traditionally, what we're seeing in the Black entrepreneurial community is not a good representation of Black business or Black expertise, Black creativity, Black ingenuity. So everybody's just doing a bunch of hustles. Or we are a jack of all trade and haven't mastered anything. We've got 10 businesses and not one of them is paying you a salary. Oh my God, I can get into that. So we're gonna answer your question. And so what we're doing in our organizations, we have a young Black mastermind group, and we'll be launching it in January solely to teach our youth how to do business in a different way, how to look at business as a different type of opportunity than what we've seen being presented in our community as business. Now, I'm not trying to be negative. I'm just trying to tell the truth. And it's time for us to stop patty caking and placating to keep people happy when happiness is not getting us to the end goal, and that's success. Let's say that again. Happiness is not part of the end goal to get us to success. You can be happy and stay broke, but we want you to be blessed and satisfied with the lifestyle that you've been able to achieve as a result of being an entrepreneur. And so, what we're wanting to see happen is other forms of business presented in our community so that our youth can see that entrepreneurship is a valid road for them, that they can experience owning a business that they are not a slave to, that they can have a life outside of running the business. And that's possible. Everybody else does, but the Black entrepreneur. And so we're wanting our youth to start with our youth and training them differently and exposing them to profitable business models, not weave shops, nail shops, hair shops, daycares, barbershop. I mean, those are the traditional things that make up our Black business community. When we've got technology and IT and healthcare and government contracting and all of those other business models out there that we are not in. And now we want to make sure that we open up these opportunities to the next generation of entrepreneurs. We have another question here. We have some of the top business schools in the country, and yet I feel that they are not teaching enough of true business principles. Thank you for the great work you are doing, Dr. Watson. That might be somebody in my organization, so thank you. Yes, I want to address that as well, because what we find, and this is the problem, is that the business school programs are all teaching how to write a business plan, and they start teaching entrepreneurs from that premise, but no one is teaching how to run a business with a plan. I want that to marinate. When I pause, ladies and gentlemen, that's for you to really think it through. No one is teaching us how to write a plan that you would execute each and every day that you're in the business. And a lot of the business programs are missing the mark. They are focusing on things that an entrepreneur will never experience in their business. And so we've decided that we're going to teach entrepreneurs the things that they would need to do every day, how you would structure the business and how you would manage the financial side of the business. Because not having a good, solid financial experience or background or understanding, you're not going to go very far in business, not in today's environment. So teaching you how to write a business plan is not what you need. You need a strategy on how to run the business. You need to know how to run it by numbers. You need to understand that everything about business is strictly financial. The language of business is financial. Every decision you make in business is financial. And I often say, even those decisions you choose not to make, they are financial. Have financial outcomes. They have financial implications. So just because you didn't make the decision doesn't excuse you from the impact of not of the decision. So not making a decision doesn't change the outcome. So it's important for us to understand all we can about the financial side of business. And another mistake that traditional business programs make is that they want to teach everybody how to be an accountant. And we're not going to teach you how to be an accountant. We're going to tell you to hire one, and a good one. But what we're going to expect you to do is to know what's in the numbers. So if an accountant did produce a balance sheet for you, you need to know how to read it. First of all, you need to know what went into the numbers that they produced the balance sheet on. So you can decipher if what's being reported on that paper is the true reflection of your company. From a financial perspective, you must run your business day to day based on those financial numbers. We predominantly do not have that level of understanding of the financial side of business. So I want to get back on track, because I don't want to leave you all. And I've got just about 10 minutes left where I got to wrap this thing up. I need everyone listening. We are here to make sure that the Black entrepreneur can compete. We're here to make sure that the level of business understanding that's necessary to create a profitable, sustainable business is available to each and every Black person who wants to get in a seat of our program. We use the dollars that we raise from scholarships, from grants, from contributors, from partners to make sure that our community is able to get what they need. So we're on track to have our boot camp program across the nation solely to make sure we can compete, to make sure that we are prepared with a sustainable means a business model that can withstand the normal tests and challenges that come, a business model that's built on financial principles so that the business is able to access capital when it is needed. Now, 83% of Black entrepreneurs cannot access capital. 83%. Why is that number so high? And it has been that way for years. I used to stop and say, why isn't anyone addressing the fact that Black people can't get a business loan? And SBA would talk about how minorities were not able to pay back their loans, and they were defaulting on business loans. And you know what? I work for the federal government, so guess what it did? I went to the SBA site and I went as far as to check to see who was defaulting on these SBA loans. They were giving us money and we weren't paying it back and we were defaulting. Shame on us minorities. But it wasn't us. It was all those other ethnicities that were getting funding and not paying it back. It was farmers in rural areas. It was technology companies. It was all types of business models getting millions of dollars from SBA, but they were not Black people. It was everybody else in the category of a minority. And there's a lot of people in the category of a minority, including white females, gay and lesbian, homosexual, Asian, Hispanic, Jewish. Every ethnicity but white is considered a minority, and white females are considered a minority. And it wasn't Black people defaulting on the loans because we don't get SBA loans. Predominantly, in most environments, when I ask the question, out of over 50 people, maybe one in the room has ever had an SBA loan. That's the condition of the Black entrepreneurial community. We are running business models that are not fundable. And consequently, without being able to access capital, you cannot sustain the life of a business. It's impossible. And we've got a lot of people saying, oh, yeah, I've done it and I've not borrowed any money. Yeah, but you robbed Peter and Paul. So tell the truth. You borrowed from Peter and you robbed Paul. And that's how you were able to do it. Or you got money from family and friends, but you didn't do it 100% on your own. I'm going to let that marinate for just a moment. You got money from somewhere. You borrowed money from somebody, because the life cycles of business, the ups, the downs, the ebb, the flow, the bell curve, it's difficult to maintain the peaks and the valleys of business without some type of financial assistance. You may not have gone to the bank, but you went to somebody. So here's another question. Does your organization support creative, yes, and non-traditional businesses? Yes, we do. Because what we had to go back to what the real under terminology and explanation of business is when you provide a good product or service, goods, products, or services for an exchange for money. That's business. Whether you're an artist, a singer, musician, whether you are in a non-traditional, and I want to know what non-traditional is. So you may have to help me out, because anytime you change, you make that exchange of goods and services and products for money, that's traditional business. So I don't know what non-traditional is, because anytime money changes hands and goods and services exchange for that money, it's business. Now, what we have to teach you how to do is how to manage it in a traditional way that you can count on a certain amount of revenue coming into the business each and every month. It's possible. It is possible. All you have to do is create the right type of business model and run the business by the numbers. That means set goals for the business. I often say in the last few minutes that business is spiritual. Some fields are more barter like. That is what I think I meant when I said non-traditional. Well, bartering is not, that's hobbies, hookups, and hustles. And we don't do hobbies, hookups, and hustles. We do real business. That means money exchange hands. I've done one of them pauses. Money exchanging hands, not favors. Not you do this for me and I do that for you. That's a hookup. So that's not business. And when you sit in front of the IRS, they're going to get you on your taxes when you're doing hobbies, hookups, and hustles. And so we believe that every business must be a valid entity and that money must exchange in order for it to be considered business, not favors, but money. And so we want to make sure that what we're doing is a valid business model and that business is structured in a way that it can access what it needs. We go a little bit further, and I don't want to blow your minds right now, but we got a whole lifetime for me to share with you all the secrets of the trade. But you can fund your own business, and we'll teach you how from the profit that you have in the business. So how does your organization support gig companies like Uber, DoorDash, etc.? Have friends in those fields too. Well, you're not a business owner when you're working for Uber and DoorDash and those gig things. You're not a business owner. You're an independent contractor that's providing a service to them. You're similar to an employee of that company. So how do you create a sustainable business? You create something that you own. That you own. You don't own DoorDash. You don't own Uber. You don't own Mary Kay. You do not own Tupperware or any of those other paparazzi or any of those other forms of business. You don't own it. And so consequently, there is no legal structure to create around it. You're not in control of what happens in the company. You're not in control of its revenues. You're not in control of the decisions that are made in the organization. You can't grow it. You can't sustain it. And so in essence, it is more like an employee-employer, but with a twist, because you're providing them a service, but you don't own it. So you're an independent contractor. That's just freelancing your services out to these companies, but you don't own anything. We want to get entrepreneurs in a position that they can own it. And it is their business and they can grow it. They make the decisions about the day-to-day operations of the business. They guide and lead it. Those are the business models that are able to be sustained. You couldn't go take out a loan to buy anything for Uber or DoorDash. So those may be things that you have to do in your transition to position you better to come up with your own idea and create your own service. You can always take something that's existing and modify it and relaunch it and be a disruptor in the industry and put your uniqueness on it and develop something that you own And that's where we want everyone to be. We want everyone to be in a position that they have a business model that they own. So this is what we're working toward, putting us in a better economic place. And so doing gig jobs and gig opportunities is it's necessary at some point in time. But our hope is that your mindset is that I'm doing this until I can shift into my own. That I'm doing this until I create enough of a future fund that I can take my future fund and start my own business. And that's where we want to see the Black entrepreneurial community move and shift to a place where we are owning sustainable business models that give us a lifestyle of a CEO or an owner of a company, and not the lifestyle of a glorified employee. Because if it isn't making any money, it really doesn't make sense for you to be doing it. We're going to come back each and every week, every Wednesday. You're going to see us at a different time, but we're going to be at this time for a while. So just keep checking for us. But we're here to stay. We're going to talk about mastermind concepts. We're going to tear down the myths and the limiting beliefs, and we're going to shift paradigms and teach you how to pivot up here. Because the only way a people can be destroyed is through lack of knowledge. There is no other way people can be destroyed other than a lack of knowledge. And when knowledge presents itself, oftentimes we refuse it. My prayer for our community is that we hunger for knowledge, that we do whatever it takes to learn how to play this game, and not just learn how to play it, but dominate in it. We can be wealth-based business models. We can hire our own community and create opportunities for them. We can change the myth and the current condition that 94% of Black entrepreneurs hire absolutely no one. And that's the reason poverty and unemployment and crime is so rampant in our communities. There are no opportunities. And Black entrepreneurs are not creating any opportunities. And now we've got to change. We've got to change so that we can be the change for our own community. And it starts with us creating successful, viable, sustainable business models. So stay tuned, Black entrepreneurs. We're going to tell you to buckle your seatbelt. Don't get off the track. Don't get out of the car. Stay in your seat. Stay on this journey with us as we help you to develop the mastermind that God has given you to do business at such a level that you'll make an impact in your community. And as a result of your wealth, you'll be able to impact so many other lives. So, from one Black mastermind to another, thank you for joining me today and allowing me to introduce who we are, the Black Mastermind Group. And we'll share more about our educational programs, our boot camps, our launch pad, our masterclass series, all the things that we're doing to impact you and to put content into your life that'll change the trajectory of your life. For more information about who we are and what we do, go to our website, theblackmastermindgroup.com. Again, that's theblackmastermindgroup.com. There's a free ebook there for you. Grab your copy while it's still there. I'll be writing another one soon. But get the one that says what every entrepreneur should know, because we're going to tell you all the secrets so you too can be successful in business. Again, thank you so very much. From one Black mastermind to another, we hope to see you on this journey of changing your life so you can change the lives of others. God bless you, and I'll see you again next week. Thank you.